Now, in today's session, we would be seeing few insights related to connectivity. How do we connect any specific data? How do we create basic charts? I mean, there are few basic charts also. Basic in the sense, what are the rules and regulations we need to follow while creating any specific chart or a visual in Power BI? So we would be going through that insights to get started with. Now, this is the ideal UI of any Power BI desktop or Power View component. If any one of you feels that the visualization tab is available in the ribbon bar, now there is a possibility with the latest update. It is not with specific to update, it is with specific to preview feature. Now, yesterday I've shown you this DAX query view. If this view is not available, or if this view you want to make sure you don't need that view, you have to go to this file tab, you have to go to the options and settings, you have to go to options. Now in the global data option, once that tab opens, in the global data option, you can go to the preview feature and you can check or uncheck depending on your requirement. Now the automobile layout is also available. If you uncheck this, the mobile layout option would be nowhere available. Now, for few of you, if you think that this visualization pane is available in the above ribbon bar, I'm not sure if anyone has that issue. Um, can you go back and check if this visualization bar is towards right of your the Power BI UI, or is it available in the above ribbon bar? If anyone is facing that issue, anyone, can you go back and check? So there is a possibility that this visualization pane sometimes would be available in the above ribbon bar. There is a possibility. So in that case, we have to again go back to the preview feature. We have to uncheck few options so that the visualization pane is available in the rightmost corner, which is the right. I mean, if you're learning Power BI, this is how the Power BI UI should look like, because it is very easy to understand. You can take your decisions easily, and the understandability is also very good. Rakesh, you have any problem with the visualization tab in your update or in your Power BI desktop?
No, that's fine. It's looking good.
Okay, okay. So I'm assuming that this visualization tab is towards right only. If anyone has an issue with this tab, if the visuals are coming in the above ribbon bar, in the latest update, there is a possibility. So if that is the case, please let me know. I will help you out how to make sure that visualization tab would be available in the rightmost corner. Now, to get started with, so as I've said, we need to connect certain data sources. Now, to get an understanding about, yeah, okay. So we would first explore what all tabs are present in the ribbon bar. So in the home tab, you have this ribbon bar, you have few options here. Now, the very first window is your clipboard. Paste, cut, copy. I mean, these are the common options which you can think of, which you can use it very easily. No as such specific definitions, no as such specific use cases can be mentioned. Straightforward, if you are copying anything, if you're maybe removing, you're cut pasting anything, that can be done here. The format painter is also available. Now, the very second thing is the data tab in the home of the ribbon bar. Now, what do you mean by data tab? Data is nothing but to which specific source we are trying to connect. To which specific source we are trying to connect. So that is the data tab. Now, there are multiple sources. Now, you will have a question that, are these the only sources which we can connect? No. The recent sources is nothing but to which recent sources you have managed to connect. Now, if you have downloaded the Power BI desktop for the very first time, the recent sources may not be available for you, or even if it's available, if you click on this down arrow, you will not find all these options, because recently I have connected so many data sources. Now, the very first component of this data option is your get data. Now, in yesterday's session, we have seen few differences. We have compared the Power BI with some other BI tools as well. Now, while comparing, we have seen that Power BI has a flexibility to connect 100 plus data sources. Now, what is that 100 plus data sources? You can go to the get data. You see there are multiple data sources connectivity option available. Now, these are the basic or frequently used data sources with respect to Power BI use case. If you click on more, see there are multiple options. The first one is the all, where you have a flexibility to connect all the data sources. All the data sources. Now, there are bifurcations if you want to connect to only databases. These are all the databases which Power BI engine supports to get connectivity with. You can go to the Fabric option. Fabric, which is the latest update in, I mean, the Microsoft update with respect to the Power BI service. Even you can connect few Fabric data sources as well. You have an option to connect Azure Cloud Platform Services. Now, almost 100 plus data sources you can easily connect with this get data option, because if you go to the all tab, almost all 100 data sources would be visible to you. Now, the question is, would be using all these 100 data sources? I mean, that is not the case, because let's take an example. You want to connect to the Oracle database. It's very easy. The first thing is you need to have an Oracle database access. I want to connect to the IBM DB2 database. Yes, it is very easy to connect, but as a user, I need to have an access to the IBM DB2. Only then I would be able to connect to that. So from our point of view, I would be showing you Excel, text, JSON, folder, PDF, SharePoint, SQL Server database, which is part and parcel of Azure Cloud. And I can also show you how to connect on-prem MySQL database. Because for SQL sessions, we have used MySQL. So I'll show you how to connect MySQL. Almost all the databases or any cloud services have that same flexibility or same option to connect. So may not be showing you all these, but yeah, the somewhere the usability, somewhere the connectivity is all same. Because if I try to connect to any of these services, I need to have a access for this. Give me a moment. Now, whenever you open this Get Data tab, you have few options here. Certified connectors and template apps. What do you mean by these two? So if you click on the certified connector, it is opening in the new window. Now, what is the certified connector? I'm trying to understand it. See, for all the products which Microsoft has developed, there is always a learn document. Now, what do you mean by learn document? Any product which is being introduced to the market, there would be some rules and regulations. There would be certain, I mean, if you purchase any product from the market also, might be you're purchasing a new mobile, might be you're purchasing a new electronic good, you will get the user manual for it, how to install it, how to use that product. Similarly, any product which is introduced by Microsoft, every product has a learn document. Similarly, for all the products or all the components related to Power BI, you will always have a learn document. If you're confused somewhere, you don't know how to exactly use any option, any service which is part and parcel of Power BI, you can easily search it and you can easily find it in the Microsoft Learn document. Now, certified connectors, it is trying to open in the Learn document. You can see learn.microsoft.com. Microsoft certifies a limited subset of custom data connections. So there is a flexibility. You can connect some custom data connections as well. Now there is this to get custom connector certified. See Power Query connector certifications. Now what is this? See, these are the some custom options which you can easily connect, and you have to download these connectors. Now custom connectors means if that source data source is not available here, and maybe you want to connect that data source to Power BI, there are few certified custom connectors also. Now that is a separate part. We would be going through that at the end. May not be now, but there is flexibility. Now, if I go to this template apps, what do you mean by template apps? See, it is opening in the Fabric environment. It is opening in the Fabric environment. So let me give you an idea. So this Fabric environment is, not that easy to connect because you need to have the Power BI service account activated. So in that case, the template app is nothing but which is installed or which is connected to the Fabric environment or the Power BI service. So these all components we would be seeing while we would be discussing the Power BI service at the end of Power BI. The basics, once we cover the Power BI desktop, we would be moving to the Power BI service. So for now, we would be trying to connect any of the options which are present here. We will see how to connect that. Now, we can easily connect data in the Power View, which is our first default UI for Power BI, or else if I directly go to the transform data option, it will open the Power Query window. So in this Power Query window also, you have an option in the Home tab, New Source. Recent sources, all the recent sources which I've connected. And if I go to the new source, you have that same option. If you click on more, it would open that same window, get data, and all the data source connectors or all the data sources which you can connect, all that would be available here again. So there are two ways, but how do you make sure that whether we need to use Power Query Editor or whether we need to use Power View to connect any specific data source? Now let's try both the ways. I'll go to the get data from the Power View. I'll click on more. Now let me see what data source I want to connect. Now I have multiple files available with me. So I want to connect a CSV text or a CSV file. Let me click on connect. See, once you click on connect, it would open the window. You need to browse that window. Once you browse that window, you can easily go to that specific folder. We are inside this folder. Now I want to connect this specific file. Let me open this. See, this is very important from which window you are trying to get data. Once I load that CSV file, it will open a new tab. See here, all the data is not available. Only preview data is there. See, the data in the preview has been truncated due to size limit. So only few records are available. Now the question is, you have three options: load, transform, or cancel. What are these options? See, if I click on load, it would be directly loaded to the Power BI view, which is Power View. If I click on transform data, it will open the Power Query window. So what is the use of this transform data? If you want to change, if you want to do some cleaning of data, it can be done in the Power Query editor. That's the reason there is this transform data option available. So let me directly load this. See, I haven't done anything. I was in the Power View. I've loaded it directly, but automatically it went back to the Power Query window. Why? Because I have opened the Power Query window in the background. Let me close this. Again, what I'll do, I'll try to delete this. See, there is a basic difference how you are loading the data. Let me delete it from the model. I again reload this data. Get data, text or CSV file. I'll go here. I'll select the data. Click on load. So this data is directly available. Now the very big question, whether the data is directly loaded to the Power View without going to the Power Query editor. No, that is not the case. If you click on transform data, again, in the Power Query editor, the car data would be defaultly available. Anything which is loaded to the Power BI or anything which is loaded from the Power View also, it comes via Power Query Editor. Power Query Editor is the first and the foremost component from which all the data sources come. So if you're loading the data directly from the Power Query Editor, here also we have this option. Again, what I'll do, I'll try to connect electronic store. Let me click on open. See here, you will not get an option called as transform because we are already in the transform window, which is Power Query window. See, there is no option. If you click on OK, the data would be directly available in the Power Query editor. Now the question is whether this data would be available in the Power View. No. If I again go back, see only car data is visible, but there is no electronic store. So whatever data you load to the Power Query editor, you have to save that data. You have to save that data. Only then that data would be visible in the Power View. How to save that? See, whenever you load any specific or whenever you change anything there in the Power Query editor, that option, this ribbon bar will already, this notification bar will come that there are few pending changes in your queries, which is your Power Query. You haven't applied that. You click on apply, there would be changes saved. Or else you can go back to the query editor. See, there is this first option. If you click on this drop down, apply the changes or apply which is the latest data source which I've done. So the changes has been applied. I'll go back and you can see the electronic store. Now, what we need to understand with this is whenever you load any specific data, whenever you connect any specific data, the data always comes from Power Query editor to the Power BI. It always comes from Power Query editor. Now, is this the case for all the data sources? Is this the case for all the data sources? Yes, this is the case for all the data sources. How is it possible? So let me give you an idea. So there are three different types of connectivity modes which are available in Power BI. Three different connectivity modes. It is very important to understand this connectivity modes. It's very important. Now, what is that connectivity mode? See, if I again go back, whenever you're loading that car data, that complete car data set is available in the Power BI window or the Power BI engine. Complete data set is available. That means it is creating a copy of that car data set from whichever source you are taking. If you go, see, if you click on this car data, towards right corner, you can see one tab, query settings tab. And in the query settings tab, there are few applied steps. Now, what do you mean by applied steps? And there are few automatically applied steps here. Few automatically applied steps here. If you go to the source tab, from which specific source that data is coming, you can see it is clearly mentioned. From so-and-so folder, from so-and-so drive folder, subfolder, from subfolder, we are able to get this data. That means from this specific path, it is copying that data and it is creating a same copy of that data in the Power BI. So this specific mode of connectivity is called as import mode. This specific mode of connectivity is called as import mode. There is one more mode called as direct mode, or this is usually called as direct query. Now you will have a question. What do you mean by direct query? Direct query is only supported by RDBMS data sources. not by any other data source. Wherever you are using any DBMS, which is RDBMS databases, if you want to connect any specific database, direct query mode is available. So you need to write a query. Depending on your query's logic, you will get that data, but it is not import data. It would be direct mode data. Now, what is the direct mode data? And the third one is the live connection. These are the three main connectivity modes which are available in Power BI. This is always important to understand how you are pulling data to the Power BI. And this is also asked in interviews. What are the different connectivity modes available in Power BI? Import, direct query, live connection. Now, direct query and live connection. Live connection is used, it is used for cubes or AAS services. Live connection doesn't mean you are connecting any specific website. No, that is not the case. No website. Usually people think that live connections means we are live connecting live to any specific website. No, that is not the case. Live connection is slightly different. Direct query, it is only supported by relational databases. Now, what do you mean by direct query? Wherever you feel that the data is very high and Power BI will take large time to import that data to the Power BI, in that case, rather than loading that complete data and importing it to Power BI, we can connect it using live or maybe a direct query, which will get that data, but it will not import it to Power BI. So how to create a direct query connection? Maybe we need to have database access first. If I again go back to the Power View or maybe Power BI, the Power Query Editor also, if I click on New Source, see if I click on SQL Server, SQL Server is a relational database. Only in that case, you can see two options are available: import or direct query. Only for databases, you will get this option. For any other connectivity medium, it is default import only. That's the reason you will never get import direct query option. It is default import. And the bifurcation of information, I mean, how many percentage of the time import will, I mean, people will use or people will go with import mode. 90% of the time people end up using import mode. In real time, 90% of the data loaded to the Power BI is an import mode connection. In case of direct query, whenever you are trying to connect any large data sets from a database, 5 to 7% of the time people end up using this direct query. Now, there is a chance that it might change, plus or minus 5% difference or variation you will have. And live connection, very rarely used, but it is only used whenever you are creating any cube or tabular service. Now, what do you mean by cube? What do you mean by tabular service? These are all advanced topics, slightly different from Power BI. This is nowhere related to Power BI, different from Power BI. In that case, if you create any tabular model, you can connect that model to the Power BI as a source using live connection. Only 3% of the time this connectivity mode is used. Very limited use case. Most of the time people end up using import modes. Now, one more important interview question which is asked: what do you mean by composite model connectivity? Now, there are three different connectivity modes. What is the composite model connectivity in Power BI? Composite is nothing but a combination of any three services. any three connectivity modes. You are trying to connect with any three connectivity modes. See, if you're loading any data using import mode, that means all the tables are loaded as import mode. If you go back to this, our is an import mode. We have imported car data, we have imported electronic store. So two data sets we have imported, or two tables we have imported. All the data sources are import only. But what do you mean by composite? Composite is a combination of all three connectivities. All three means not all three, either of the three. If so, if you're connecting one as import, if you're connecting one more table as direct query, this is called as composite model, because you're using one as import and you're using one of the table as direct connectivity. Direct query and import mode. So this is called as composite model. There can be other use case also. One, you are using direct query, and the other one you are using as a live connection. Even this is called as composite mode. Or else, if you're using import and you're using live connection, even this is called as composite model. So if you're using a combination of any two connectivity modes, any two, may not be all three. Okay, if you use all three also, it is composite model. Now the question is, are we using only one? See, you can load 10 tables using import, and you can load one table using direct query. Even that is called as composite model connectivity. So I'll take a pause. Any questions on the composite model connectivity, or any questions on the three connectivity modes which are available in Power BI? Any questions? See, these connectivity modes are very, very important. You need to have a very good idea on this. And these are all interview questions. If you have 5 years, if you have 10 years of experience, anyways, 10 years is not the case for Power BI. It was introduced in 24th, in the July 2015, 24th July 2015. It's almost 9 years back. So even if you have 6, 7 years of experience in Power BI, the very common question which is asked is, what all connectivity modes are there, and what do you mean by composite model?
So how it's how it's possible, like any three connectivity modes? Can you give some example?
For direct query, you need to have a RDBMS connector. Connector in the sense, I need to have a database. For live connection, I need to have a tabular model. For
Mm-hmm.
me, as of now, I only have data coming from my own system. That is why I'm using import mode. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there is a possibility that you are trying to connect data from multiple sources. One data which you're loading. See, again, I'll go back. I'll go to the get data. I'll click on SQL Server. So suppose there is a requirement. Just an example. Suppose we have 12 tables all coming from SQL Server. So I want to load all these 12 tables to the Power BI. But out of these 12 tables, 10 tables are easy to load. That means you can use import mode. It can be imported to the Power BI. Right? Now, only two tables are such big tables. They are very heavy tables. So in that case, what I will do, I'll end up using direct query for this. I'll not load using import mode. I'll use a direct query. But all 12 tables are coming from that same SQL server. The source is same. mode of connectivity is different for few tables. That means 2 tables. 10 tables import mode, 2 tables directly. This is also called as composite model. You're not using only one connectivity mode. You're using 2, import as well as direct query. It can be from same data source or it can be from a different data source also. Forget about data source. How you're loading that data, either by using import or either by using direct query or either by using live connection. Any questions on this?
Yes, sir. One question I have. So which one is better in performance wise if we see, like in Tableau, the extracts are playing well as compared to the live connection. So here, which one is better out of the 3 modes if
Same
we consider
import.
performance?
Import is way more better.
Okay.
Hello, hi
What
sir.
is your
And
name?
also, sorry.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
And also when we use the direct query, is it also comes to the Power Query or direct go to the Power View?
No. It will always come from the, see, the very important thing. Good that you asked a question. If you're using a direct query, there are few limitations of this direct query. Direct query means you are loading data, but not importing the data to the Power BI window. You're only loading the data and you're creating a copy of the data, but not importing it to Power BI. So Power BI will have no authority to completely extract the data and do some changes. Now, what is the primary idea behind this Power Query editor? Power Query editor is used for cleaning or transforming the data. There are many options here. Every tab, there are many options. The primary idea to use behind this Power Query editor is for transforming or cleaning the data. So if you're using a direct query mode will have zero impact on the Power Query. That means you cannot transform your data using direct query connectivity. That is a limitation of the direct query. There are limitations. We would be going through that. So if you're using a direct query, that means Power BI will have no right to change the data. What you want to change, you have to write it in the query itself. So direct query will not be, that data would not be coming from a Power Query. It would be directly coming from the source. Power Query will have no authority to transform that data if you're using a direct query. That is the limitation of a direct query. Direct query is only used where the data is very high. So it will improve data load performance. That's the only advantage. That's the only advantage. But there are many disadvantages. Because if you're using a direct query, the data is managed by source. You cannot manage data in Power BI. So limitation is you cannot use Power Query editor. You cannot easily model that data. Yes, you can change some connectivity modes. You can change the modeling, but completely you cannot handle that data. That is the limitation of a direct query. We would be discussing all this. Let's first understand what connectivity modes are. Once I would be connecting with the RDBMS source, there I would be giving you an idea why direct query has certain limitations. Direct query doesn't support many DAX functions. There are many DAX functions in which, if you're using the DAX function on this data set where it is connected as a direct query, many of the DAX functions are not supported easily. So there are limitations. But there is only one advantage. It will improve the data load performance. The data is very high so that it will connect that data and it will load that data very fast. That's the only advantage. Any other question?
In real-time scenarios, how often do
We are
use the
importing
direct
data from
Just a
Excel.
moment. Just a moment. In the just a moment. Devi has a question. Yeah, go ahead.
In real-time scenario, how often do we use the direct query?
As I've said, 90% of the time people end up using import. If you ever feel that the data is taking large amount of time, you can go with the direct query. Very limited use case, and live connection is very rare. But still they are part and parcel of Microsoft, part and parcel of connectivity mode. So that's the reason I've explained all three.
Okay.
Any other question, Devi?
And the same question about the composite model, like how often do they use like?
See, if you want a combination, often is not the source here. See, if I say
Like
90% of the
having
time
an-
people, 90% of the time people using import mode, that means other 10% is a composite model. People will never use only direct query. I mean, I haven't seen a dashboard which is completely created on the direct query only. I
Yeah,
have
so there is
seen,
like much
huh,
chance of using a composite model, right?
yes,
Instead of-
yes.
Yeah.
Either only import or either a composite model, not
Okay.
only direct query.
Yes, that's
Yeah, go ahead, Prakash, you go ahead.
Yes, sir. Like if we are implementing any RLS and also row-level security and all, will it applicable for both
No.
import? Yeah.
Direct query RLS will not work as good as import mode, or probably you can say RLS will never work. That you can
Okay, sir.
easily assume.
Hello, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Dinesh, go ahead. Dinesh, someone had a question, right?
What if you wanted to extract or pull a data from data warehouse to show the real-time data for the leaders? We have to go with direct query, right?
See, if that warehouse is somewhere behaving like a SQL, like RDBMS, yes, you can have that option to import data using direct query. As I've said, direct query is only restricted to the RDBMS. If it is not RDBMS, it is default import. Now the question comes, if you are getting data from the data warehouses, and if that data warehouse is very large and the data present in that it is very heavy, in that case, what people will do, they will create a tabular model or a cube. From there, they will connect it as a live connection.
Okay.
Can you repeat that? Can you, explain it?
See,
Connecting to data
what do you
warehouse.
mean by tabular model? What do you mean by cube? That is a different part. So whatever we do in Power BI or Power Query, that can be done in a tabular model. It's the same copy of that, but you are handling everything in the tabular model and you are loading it to the Power BI for the reporting. But if you use a live connection, see, there are three different tabs which are available here. One is report view, one is table view, one is model view. These three tabs are available for import mode. If you use a direct query, you will only get report view and you will only get model view. Data view or table view would not be available because table is part of source. You have connected it to Power BI as a direct query. You cannot handle the data in the table view. Whereas if you connect as a live connection, for a live connection, you will only have report view. You can only create visuals. You cannot check the data, whether which table is it, or you cannot change the modeling of that data. It is completely handled by tabular model or cubes. That is how connectivity modes have an impact.
Hello. Hello, sir. Good
Yeah,
morning.
go ahead.
I
Morning.
just want to know, suppose we have a data and how to decide which mode is best that time, or
See, blindly go with import mode.
okay.
But if you are connecting to any SQL databases, if you
Okay.
feel that the data is very heavier, you can end up using direct query. But as I've said, direct query has only one advantage, but many limitations. Only for RDBMS, this direct query is there. If you're connecting any other data sources, go with import mode. Blindly go with import mode.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other
Hi.
questions?
Yeah, hi. You said when we load data into Power BI, it will be loading into this Power Query also, right? So if you made any changes in the Power Query, does it reflect in the Power BI data visualization which we have made?
Yes.
So
So,
okay.
see, if I do anything here in the Power, now I'm deleting this column, year column. I want to remove. See, we would be going through the transformation option once we are good with the visualization. So if I remove this column, that step is calculated here. It is captured here. Now, if I go back, see that notification bar is automatically coming. You have to apply that change. That changes would be applied in the Power View as well. So what you do in Power Query would be reflected in the front end Power View. Power Query is the back end. Power View is the front end.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't looked at the course curriculum yet, but do you also cover the gateway connections and all?
Yeah.
Configure-
It would be Power BI service.
Yes, okay. Do you cover that too?
Yeah. I would be, you need a gateway until and unless you cannot use Power BI service correctly.
Yes.
Any other questions? See, if you have any random question also, feel free to ask. Maybe I'll take a pause of 30 seconds. Still, if you have any questions, any random question also.
One more thing, can we auto save the changes instead of every time clicking on apply changes? Can we make a setup that every time when I made a change in the background data, that reflects in my dashboards?
Okay. See, whatever you do in Power Query, it will not be directly saved because you are manually doing it, right? You are doing it in the Power BI desktop. In that case, you have to go to the Home tab. There is this option. See, while closing this window also, do you want to apply the changes? It will always ask a question. Now, if you haven't changed anything, it will directly close this. You have done some changes. That's the reason it is asking you whether you want to apply that change or not. Right? So there is an option here, close and apply or directly apply the change. Whatever you do in Power BI desktop, that has to be saved because you are manually doing it. Okay, once you save and publish it to the Power BI service, there nothing is there and it would be managed automatically.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So can we open two Power Query editors simultaneously?
No.
Okay, only one at a time.
Yes. For one Power BI desktop, you can open one. If you have two reports, you can open two separate Power Query editors. This is report one. I've opened only one window. If I open Power BI desktop with a new report, for that report, I can open the Power Query separately. But one report at a time.
So like we have to click on this plus and
No. This is pages. One report can have multiple pages. This is
so
pages.
how can we open two reports? Like this is one.
You need to save this report. You need to save this report. You need
Save
to
and
save
close.
this report and open the other report. Say if I open
Okay.
Power BI desktop again. Let me open this. See, you can see it is opening a new window. So this would assume as a separate report. This is a separate report. So for this report, this is the Power Query editor. for this report, if I open transform data, if I open again, this would have a separate Power Query data. It would be blank because we haven't loaded anything. Right? Power Query editor, Power Query editor. This is for this, and this is for the other one which I've opened. For one report, you cannot open simultaneously because you are handling all the data in one single view. Why to open a different view? Even if you have multiple screens, there is no possibility. And whenever you close Power View, automatically everything would be closed. Because Power Query is backend. If you close the front end itself, everything would be closed. But if you close Power Query, Power View would be still there.
So for real-time data analytics, we can only collect live data.
Real-time data analytics is a different stuff. Now, what is the exact use case of that real-time analytics? We need to understand what is the use case.
Like
Data, see, if you use import mode also, you can refresh that data. If you publish that report, you can refresh. If you have premium per user license, you can refresh 48 times a day. Now, real-time data analytics, that means every 1 second if the data is changing. In that case, you have to use a live connection.
Live connection.
Yes. Any other question? Okay, if there are no questions, anyways, we have loaded few data. I'll remove this. Let me apply the change. Now, we have seen the data tab. We have this queries tab, which will open the Power Query editor. So once you click on this transform data, you can transform the data. There is this data source settings. Data source settings, may not be today, but going further, we will see what is the use case of this. Now, what do you mean by refresh tab? If you have made any change in the Power Query editor and you refresh it here, it's one and the same. You click, you save, apply here, or you apply here. Both are same. Now we have loaded, anyways, we have loaded the two datas. Just a moment. Now someone has posted an image that I'm getting a Copilot option here. Copilot option in the Power BI desktop. Who's this one? Braj. You have loaded this image. Okay. Can you click on that Copilot option? One who are getting a Copilot window here, can you click on that Copilot window? It will ask you to log in first. Once you log in, you need to have minimum E2 license. It is not the Power BI license. It is advanced license, nowhere related to Pro Premium. Copilot comes with Power BI E2 license. E2 is different license.
Yeah, it's saying it cannot access Copilot.
Yes. Copilot is in preview mode. It is not yet completely available. It is in preview mode as of.
Yeah, preview mode.
So Dinesh has a question. For suppose we have used import mode at the first instance, and if the data is going on increasing, can we change from import mode to the direct query mode? See, once you load the data as import mode, connectivity mode cannot be changed easily. So what you can do is you can create a copy of that same data set where the new data set will have a direct query. And once the direct query is available, you can delete the older one and you can rename the new data set with that same name, which older data set was. So it will automatically replace. That it will happen. But you cannot change it using only one data set. Now it's almost 9. We will start with the basic visualization today. See, once you load the data, there are few visuals. So the very first line, if you see, these are all the bar charts or column charts. So every bar chart and column chart has its specific use case. Let me start with the first one, stacked bar chart. I'll go here. See, whenever I am clicking on that visual will automatically come. Now, as a very first time user to the Power BI, I would always recommend to go to the View tab. Inside this View tab, in the page option, you have this grid lines. You uncheck this. This is the default one. For you people, this is how it will look. But what I've done, I have used grid lines. Why? Because if you want to format this visual with a specific size, see, I can format using grid lines. I can format using grid lines. So it is recommended to use grid lines if you're using this Power BI for the very first time. Even if you're not using for the first time also, I mean, if you have grid lines, easy to understand. And these grid lines will never come in the Power BI service. This is only for our development purpose. Again, I'll go back to the Home tab, default. Now I've used tag bar chart. Now, whenever you are working on your visuals, you need to go back to your schooling days. Bar chart. That means it will flow from left to right, not from bottom to top. From left to right, it will flow. Now, how bar chart will work? How bar chart will work? If anyone can recall how bar chart will work. As I've said, you need to go back to your schooling days. See, in case of bar chart, this is how it will work. It will create bars this way. Right? Now, whenever you are creating a bar chart, there are two separate axes. One is x-axis and one is y-axis. This is what? Which one of them is x-axis and which is y-axis? This is x-axis for bar chart and this is y-axis for bar chart. See, what do you mean by axis? You have to go back and check. It's your all schooling. It's very easy, x and y-axis. Again, I'll go back. We have y-axis, we have x-axis. Why y-axis is coming first? Because you need to mention this y-axis and only then you need to mention x-axis. The axis which is below, it will come first, and axis which is towards above, it will come second. For bar chart, y-axis is coming first. Again, I'll go back. Now, there are a few other options also. Legend, small multiples, tooltips. We'll go through them afterwards. First, I'll drag and drop few columns to this y and x-axis. Now, what columns can be used in the y-axis? I mean, which columns can be used in the y-axis? I'll drag and drop year from this car data. So it is taking time to load. See. So somewhere it has loaded y-axis as year. Is it the same? Now I'll load the x-axis. I'll load the x-axis. Y-axis I've used year. X-axis I'll use car. Do you think the axis is working fine? In y-axis, I've used year. Y-axis is coming this way. And x-axis is coming this way. Again, I'll go back. Have we used the axis correctly here?
No.
Horizontal axis will be the x-axis and the vertical will be y.
Keep that in mind. Horizontal is always x-axis. Vertical is always y-axis. Even if you change bar to column, column to bar, axes will remain same. Again, I'll go back. Keep one thing in mind. Whenever you are using a bar chart, this is, forget about what bar chart is it. It is stacked bar chart. First thing is to identify what is bar chart. Then we'll go to stacked bar chart. Now, whenever I am dragging any specific column to y-axis is the year column. And whichever column I drag and drop to the x-axis, it will take as count of that component. Now I've used car name. I'll remove this. I'll go to the transmission. If I load this transmission is what? See, if you expand any data set, you will get list of all the columns which are present in that data set. Now, what is the data type of that column also matters. Wherever you will see this E, this is summation, this is aggregation icon. That means these are all the numeric data. It can be decimal, it can be float, but these are all the numeric data. Whereas if you don't see any icon, that means it's a string value, varchar value. Now, what do you mean by string? String is a combination of anything. It can have numeric also. It can have character also. It can have special character as well. Anything can be there, but it is a combination. So that's the reason it's a varchar, and this is a only string value. That means it's it's only a numeric value. Numeric, it can be decimal, float, any numeric data, but it's a numeric data. So if I am loading any, string value, even if I am loading a string value, it is taking as a count of car name. That means it is changing it to numeric. It is changing it to numeric. Why? Because what is the characteristics of this bar chart? What is the characteristics of the bar chart? Bar chart, y-axis will always have list of values here, and bar is flowing from left to right. That means x-axis will give you count of that number. How many ones are there? How many twos are there? How many threes are there? So default x-axis will always have a count of values for a bar chart. Again, I'll go back. But in case of y-axis, I have taken numerical data. Can I take any categorical data or string data? Why not? In case of y-axis, I'll take car name. I've taken car name. Say car name, it's a varchar, string data. But if I take kilometers driven, it is summing up that value. For which car, how many kilometers it drove. So whenever you take any categorical or any numerical data also, it will, x-axis will sum up or count. It will do a numerical calculation. Whereas y-axis will retain its behavior. If you take numeric, it will be numeric. If you take string, it will be string. So keep one thing in mind. If you're using a bar chart, Y-axis will retain the behavior. X-axis will change it to numeric, either sum, count, whatever you want. Now, how do I change that? There is this drop down. What aggregation you want, you can change that aggregation. So first, understand the behavior of charts. Now this is bar chart. I'll compress this. You can change or you can compress the size also. What I'll do, I'll go to the column chart. Column chart is opened. I'll make it large. Maybe I'll fit it to size. Done. Now in case of column chart, it's the same. Column chart will also work same, but how it will be? It will be horizontally, not vertically. How column chart will work? For every chart, there is a specific behavior. You need to understand that behavior. If you understand that behavior, you will be pro in visualization in terms of any BI tool. May not be only Power BI. Column chart, same x-axis, same y-axis. I'll go back. See, x-axis is coming first here, not the y-axis. Here, if I go to bar chart, y-axis was coming. I'll go to column chart again. Now, whatever I take in x-axis, it will retain the behavior of it. If I take year numeric. But if I take car name in the y-axis, it will be count of car name. Again, I'll go back. Here, I'll remove this. Year, count of car name. Only change of axis. In case of bar chart, y-axis is retaining the behavior, whereas in case of column chart, x-axis is the retaining the behavior. The other axis is using a count, numerical aggregation. It is using an aggregation. Now you want count of car name, count of car name. One and the same, both are same. So if I hover on this, 2015, 61 cars, 2015, 61 cars. But only axis is making the difference for this column chart and bar chart. Horizontal, vertical. Any questions on this x-axis, y-axis behavior of bar chart and column chart? See, if you understand this, first line is almost done. What do you mean by stacked? What do you mean by clustered? And what do you mean by 100% stacked? It is 5 minutes work or 5 minutes understanding. Nothing more than that. But you need to first understand the difference between bar chart and column chart.
So, sir, that means
Go ahead.
On x-axis, we always put like numeric values. We have to put always.
Not always numeric values the right purpose. You can take categorical data. See, in case of column chart, x-axis is the below axis, which is important. This one. And y-axis will give you count. So here you can take numerical data, well and good. Here you can take any string data or categorical data also. Category is nothing but string data. I can take that. I can take car name. Car name and what is the kilometers driven. You can use categorical value also. Even that is feasible. But whatever value you are using in the y-axis, it will be working like numerical. Even if you drag and drop any categorical data, I'll take car name. It will be count of cars sold. I've used same column in both the axes. Car name in the x-axis and how many cars were sold, it will give you count of cars. If I click on this, you'll only get count. But if I remove and if I add any numerical value, kilometers driven is a numeric. So numerical value will have Sorry, my bad. Numerical value will always have multiple options. You can see sum of kilometers driven, count of kilometers driven, count distinct, average kilometers driven. Why? Because kilometers driven is a numerical data. That's the reason we are getting so many options. But if I remove this numeric and if I use that same car name, which is string value, only count will come, count or count distinct, because this is a categorical data type.
So y-axis has numeric behavior.
Yes. And in case of bar chart, x-axis as a numeric behavior.
Okay, it depends on chart.
It depends on chart, bar chart or column chart. Any other question? See, understanding of charts is very, very important. I have seen many people who learn Power BI from YouTube, very good. If you do not understand the behavior of charts, if you simply drag and drop any visual and you think you're good in Power BI, there is something seriously wrong. You need to understand where to use what kind of chart. And nowadays, interviews are so restricted that many people come up with that I know very good Power BI. Now they'll ask interviewer, even, I mean, if I'm interviewing any person, what I'll ask, can you explain me the difference between bar chart and column chart? 90% of the people will fail. 10% will answer because that 10% people have understood Power BI in depth. So for every chart, there is a behavior of it. You need to go back and understand. If you understand this 36 charts behavior, 30 or 35 or 36, you are pro Power BI developer.
So we have to memorize like what we
Yes.
have to put on x-axis, what we have to put on
Yes.
y-axis.
You have to understand. You have to guess that behavior. Guess in the sense, see, if you know insights and see, bar chart and column chart we have done in our schooling days. If you recall that also, it is more than enough. I mean, that's the same point to use this. Now, what do you mean by stacked? There is some stacked, right? There is an option called as legend here. I mean, what is this legend? What I'll do, we have three different fuel types, right? We have three different fuel types. For the people who have joined with SQL, they already know this car data set. Now, how do I make sure that how many types of fuel types are there? I can go to the table view here. I was in the report view. I'm going to the table view. I'll click on this car data. I'll go to this fuel type. In this fuel type, I'll click on this drop down. So there are three different fuel types, CNG, petrol, and diesel. I'll click on OK. I'll come back to the report view. Inside this legend, I will take fuel type. There is some color combination. Now, what I'll do, this chart is very compressed. I mean, I'm not able to read. If you hover on this chart, there is this focus mode. The chart has become big. Now, if you click on back to report, it will again compress. It is only focusing it on that visual or on that chart. Now you can see for SX4, there are three different vehicles. For CNG, there is one. For diesel, there is one. For petrol, there are four. For WagonR, CNG 1, petrol 3. Whereas for Honda City, there are petrol 20 vehicles and diesel, there are 6 vehicles. Legend will bifurcate that column. These are all the columns, right? This is column chart. So legend is bifurcating with the help of fuel type, count of cars by car name, and bifurcating it by fuel types. Legend is the component which is using a stack combination. Stack means, see, you need to understand what do you mean by stack word. What do you mean by stack? Stack meaning. To put something into a tidy pile. So what we are doing, we are putting this fuel type inside a car name. So we are forcing this fuel type to be inserted, or maybe we are putting this value inside this column chart, which is bifurcating by 3 different fuel types by count of car name. That is called as stacked column chart. And again, I'll go back here. If I go to the bar chart, I'll use that same fuel type in the legend. It will work same. Stacked bar chart, stacked column chart. Forget about small multiples and tooltips, we will cover afterwards. Now, if I go to the clustered bar chart, see what am I doing? I'm not changing anything. I have clicked on this stacked bar chart and I'm changing the visual to the clustered bar chart. There is only small difference. Stacked means it will stack in the same bar or column, whereas cluster means it will cluster, it will combine multiple columns or bars. See what it is doing. I'll focus this. Earlier, this was stacked bar chart. I'll remove this year. (2018). How come 2018 is going here? Okay, from 2005 below. Not all the years are getting reflected, but anyways, what I'll do, I'll change it to the clustered bar chart. Cluster means rather than creating partitions inside that bar, it is separately creating different clusters. It is separately creating different clusters. If I again do it to the stacked bar chart, forget about everything. Focus on this 2015 because 2015 has all 3 fuel types for the car. So 2015, CNG 1 vehicle, diesel 15, petrol 45 vehicles. If I change it to the cluster, see, it is the same, but it is creating a cluster of these 3 components. For CNG 1, for diesel 15, for petrol 45. Rather than doing it in the single bar, it is creating 3 separate bars as a cluster. Difference between stacked and clustered bar chart. Very slight difference. Only design is changing, but everything, behavior is same. If you know bar chart, if you know column chart, as I've said, first line is enough. Done. We are close with that first line. We have covered 6 visuals, you can say. Any questions on this stacked bar chart, stacked column? I mean, same goes with the stacked column chart and clustered column chart. This is stacked column. It will act like a clustered column. Now, let me focus on this. This is clustered column. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, silence. I'm taking it as no. We are almost good on time. We have seen the difference between stacked, difference between bar and column chart rather than stacked, clustered. Forget about that. We have seen what is bar chart. We have seen what is column chart. I would always recommend to go back, utilize this weekend to first understand the UI of Power View and Power Query. Power Query, if you if you're not exploring that Power Query as of now, also well and good. Because once we complete the visualization, we will move to the Power Query.
Hi. Few minutes back, you asked a question. What is the main difference between these two types of chart? How we need to put it in an interview?
Okay. Now, where to use what kind of chart? It all depends on the size of the report. Size means how much space you are having. So, see, if I compare these two charts with the same size, for few of you, this chart is easily understandable. For few of you, this chart is easily understandable. Now, it all depends on the client requirement. If client feels bar chart is looking good, go with bar chart. If client feels column chart is looking good, go with column chart. So you have to identify which chart is more easily readable. Now, from my point of view, both the charts are not readable because everything is small in size. Formatting, we haven't done up till now. In Monday's session, I would be starting with the formatting also, because if you're starting or if you're working on any charts in Power BI, formatting is must. If you drag and drop any information, charts will work. Yes, it will work. But if you are unable to read, there is no use of it. So formatting plays an important role. If you format your first visual, that means you are 90% of the task is done. You can format any other visual using that first visual because you have this option called as Format Painter. So we would be covering that from Monday's session. See, we have only started. For first 5-10 sessions, you will feel that we are going with a very low pace. Yes, because you need to get used to this Power BI. Once you get once you get a good hands on it, maybe we can increase the pace. Any other questions? Anyone who have joined in today's session only? I feel there were 55 is the maximum strength which I've seen. Anyone who have joined in today's session? Maybe you haven't attended the first two.
Yes, I joined today's session only.
Okay, Yogesh. So any questions about this course or you have an idea about it?
No, actually, I rewatched the recording sessions. I have
Okay,
only one question. Even I go through the Q&A sessions also in first session.
okay.
Just
Okay.
my questions is here actually, if in case we completed, actually I have 6-year experience in that. If in case I completed this course, how many years I can show the year of experience in confidently?
Okay, so you have 6 years of experience in which field? Non-IT or IT?
Both I worked, mainly I worked MIS and data analyst side only.
You can show all your 6 years in Power BI, but if you ever feel, see, the course which we would be covering, minimum you can show 3+ years.
Okay.
With your exposure, with your 6 years of experience, you can show 5-6 also. But it all depends how good you have understand the Power BI.
Yeah, that part I know, but which are topics you covered based even how much I learn and my confidence I can show it. I completely agree. But which are topics based on that? How much I can show the
Minimum
current?
you can show 3+.
Okay, thank you.
Minimum 3+. But if you want to show 6+ also, even that is feasible. But the question is, see, I would be covering all the topics which are required for even 6+ years. The question is whether you would be able to recall it at the time of interview.
Yes, correct. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank
you. Any other question?
Sir,
no.
in bar chart, there is a count of car name, right? Sorry, in bar chart. Is that in that we have separation of numbers like 0, 20, 40, while in the same as column chart in count of car name, you're having 0 to 5 and 5 to 10. Is there any specified formula for differentiation, or according to data, it is converting like that?
You can format that. If you go to this visualization tab, whenever you load a visual or drag a visual, the second tab is format your visual. You can format your visual. You can change your axis here. What is the range you want? And if you want this range to be, again, I'll go back. This is y-axis, right? So you can change it to 1,000 millions or 2. You can change. If you want 5 difference, you can take 5 difference also. If you want 10 difference, you can take. You can change the range. So there is this formatting option available for every visual.
Okay, sir. Thank
you. Any questions? Aditi, you have a question?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Ritesh. Bhavna this side.
Hey, Bhavna. Yeah.
Yeah. Ritesh, would we be using the data sets which we have previously developed or scripted in MySQL, or would you be providing those data sets to visualizations?
Okay. See, while connecting MySQL, we can use that data sets. We can use that script. I mean, if that data is available in MySQL, we need to write a query and we need to get that data. Or you can directly load as a table also.
Okay.
That is possible.
I mean, I'm asking the one which we have scripted in MySQL, those only we were using, or any kind of new data.
No, we can see. I would be using some other data sets also.
Okay.
Not that same data sets. We would be using some other as
well. Okay. Yeah. Thank
you. Any other question? Okay, silence is no. We are good on time. 9:33. We'll connect back on Monday with the continuity of discussion about charts. I would be covering this charts for 5 plus 5, 10 days. Because charts are very important. Post this, we would be jumping to the Power Query transformations. Once that is done, some advanced topics, and then we would be going through DAX. So along with DAX, we need to cover the Power BI service as well. So somewhere we would have 35 plus somewhere around 40 sessions only for Power BI. Almost 2 months or probably 2 months. 21 or 22 sessions which we get on monthly basis. So assuming that 20 plus 20, 40 sessions. Any other question?
Hi Ritesh, if the interviewer asks how you highlight your findings in your charts, means what would be the answer?
Findings in the sense, maybe you can.
He just asked like how you highlight your findings in the report.
Okay, got you. I mean, from this chart, what are the important points which you can highlight? That is what. Now, see, so if you take a look at this chart, let's go to the focus. So from this chart, what I'm able to understand that Honda City is the one which had the highest number of sales. Then it goes with Corolla Altis. And if I scroll it towards last, the Yamaha FZ. So this is car data. Maybe it includes the bike information also. So you can bifurcate that here, which is the car, Vitara Brezza. There is only one Vitara Brezza which is being sold. S-Cross. There is only one S-Cross. So you can identify that cars with highest sales, cars with lowest sales, and in specific to fuel type also, petrol is the one which is frequently sold, diesel is second, and CNG is third. So how do you highlight that points? Highlighting points, we have an option called as text box. In the home tab only, we have an option called as text box. See, if I insert this text box, whatever information you are able to grasp from this visual, this specific visual, you can write it here. You can write it here. Whatever information, you can write that information here, and you can paste this text box in parallel with this visual, somewhere here or next to this or below this. We would be covering all this. Need not worry, we would be covering all. For every chart, text box is required. No, that is not the case. For few charts, wherever you feel text box is compulsory, you can go with that.
Okay, thank
you. Any other question?
Hi, Ritesh. Now you showed the text box, right? That we're writing some insights there. Is there any possibility to we automate that insights based on that chart?
Okay. See, automation is there in Power BI service. In Power BI service, we have a flexibility. There are a few charts which are available here. These charts, key influencer. If you click on this key influencer, if you drag and drop some data to this chart will automatically visualize and it will give you some insights. But this is all natural language processing. 90% of the time, there is a chance that the data may not be correctly processed. So you have to manually go back and check. Automation is there.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, sentence we manually correct it. At least percentage wise,
no, percentage wise also you have to check. Only Yogesh had a question. Can we go back and create automated insights? There is a possibility, but as I've said, you have to go back and check it manually. In Power BI Desktop, there is no as such direct automation.